Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Guys on Sports. Week 15 is in the books. Week 16 is here. The playoffs have begun. I'm advancing. You're advancing in your league. I don't know. I know you lost. Not trying to rub it in. I think all of us out there, you might have got some good information from us, bad information from us. Hey, we're trying just like you are, but how'd it go?
Just your league. I'm 1 for 3 in home league championships. I'm in a championship this week. My team absolutely went off the last couple weeks. Our only undefeated team in the league went down playoff week number 2.
Nice.
You know what? It couldn't have happened to a better guy because he was getting a little bit too sure of himself. In
Oh
the
wait,
game.
no, I'm talking about a different league. So he went down. He went down to a horrible team.
Yeah.
Had a chance at $500 for a perfect season, and went down very last game. But I digress. As far as my other teams, I'm probably going to break just around even this year.
How are you feeling, Rock?
I'm feeling good. You know, like in my league, I made, you have that string where you make every right decision.
Yeah.
I expended all of my franchise players that I could do nothing with.
Yes.
Picked up 4 first-round picks.
Nice.
And then rattled off 6 straight wins to make the playoffs. And I got to unseat you, which feels a little bit good. It does.
That's nice. I was going to touch on that. I mean, I'm happy for you. I think it's about time you win in your league. It'd be nice. I will say there was four teams in your league with the same 4 or 3.
Yeah.
With the same
Our league
record.
is a league of parity.
9 and
Except
6.
for Sean Blackburn.
Yeah, Sean Blackburn. He's
He
really
sucks.
bad.
He sucks, yeah.
All of us were 9 and 6. Rocky did beat me by the very rule that he rages against, which is points for.
Well, I beat you head to head.
Rages against.
So, like, either way, I beat
Yeah,
you.
no, but head to head is not really the real
But it
measure.
should. Because, like, in real football, isn't it more head to head than point score?
Points
It
for
is.
it is, but this
Head-to-head.
is not real football.
Well, it kind of is.
And the
Supposed to
real
be.
measure is
Real
point four.
man. Yeah, I mean, come on.
right. Anyway, so we got a bunch in store for you guys. We got league winners and losers, and although me and Mark didn't do great last week, I did a little bit better. You did so bad. Rocky did really good, and then we have fantasy prime time.
Bijan was solid, and the guy that was argued against
How much
Saquon
did
did less.
How much did Bijan get? Do you know?
14, I think.
Okay, I'm not going to push you on that. You're going to get some good information. The thought process was right. It can't always come out the way you expected. And then we have Get Bold to close the show. I think Rocky hit on his Get Bold as well.
I did.
I don't know if I hit or I got close this week. Who was my? Oh, no, I did.
Yeah, you did
I did
hit.
one leg of it. Lamar Jackson did have over 250, had over 50 yards rushing.
5
had
touchdowns.
5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Zay Flowers, Derrick Henry did not cash in. There was a massacre in the Meadowlands. But I digress. We'll move on to league winners and losers. All right. League winners and losers. All we're going to do is point out guys that we feel like
Could
should
help you
be in
win.
your lineup this
Yeah.
week. There's a few guys in here that we're going to talk about that shouldn't be. And obviously, there's top tier guys that we're not going to probably touch on here unless it's a sit. Last week we had some surprises. All right, guys. So, Mark, we'll have you go first.
All right. So obviously now at this point, right, we're talking about we're trying to make predictions for 2 teams at this point, right? Because we're in the championship week at this point in most leagues. So with that being said, we have to kind of get lucky on these guys that we're selecting here. But I'm going to tell you something. If you were fortunate enough to put this guy on your bench and stash him, he's immediate offense this week and is going to help you win your championship, especially you just got a bona fide surprise flex play in Jerome Ford. Nick Chubb went down. You have Cleveland, who is going to be Jameis Winston-less next week as well. So they're not going to put the ball in the air nearly as much as they did with Jameis as they will with Dorian Thomas-Robinson. You have Jerome Ford, who's proven himself a capable runner in the past, who's going to get the lion's share of the carries against the Cincinnati defense that just let Tony Pollard run all over them. So you're looking at a back like Jerome Ford that is very capable. If you've been fortunate enough to stick this guy on your bench and you're one of those teams in your championship game, kudos, enjoy your championship because you just got a fantastic surprise flex play because Jerome Ford is going to go off for well over 15 points this week.
All right, I like that. And from one running back to another, I'll get right into mine. My guy is going to be somebody we talked about a bunch on the show. That's Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle, since being committed to as a starting running back about 3 weeks ago, has been on the field for over 70% of the snaps, over 100 yards in each game, and it's escalating. It was like 106, then he hit 131, and I think last week he hit his highest total of the season at 149. He's a little bit less trustworthy in the pass game, although he has gotten about 5 targets over the last few weeks. But for me, when you're plugging in Rico Dowdle this week, it's not for major upside, but he's been consistent. He's getting all the snaps. He's getting all the carries, and you're going to be able to count on him, especially guys that lost people like Montgomery. I think he slots in very nicely to your lineup if you lost someone like that. But Rico Dowdle is a guy that I could plug in and almost guarantee he's going to get you at least 15 points.
Explosive. If you watch those games, Rico Dowdle is a man on a mission. Rico Dowdle looks like what Tony Pollard looked like behind Zeke a few years ago.
That's true. And double-digit finishes in the last 3 weeks. I forgot my little stat there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, my winner, we're going to stick on to the same thread of running backs. I think somebody may disagree with me, but I am saying Joe Mixon is a league winner. One thing, you mentioned Jerome Ford, and what I liked of both Ford and Chubb is that they actually ran pretty well and broke off a few decent-sized runs against the KC defense. So my winner is Mixon. Joe Mixon has been on an absolute tear the last 6 games, over 650 yards with 7 touchdowns, and he finishes up with, I think, a decent array of teams that he's going against. KC is a good defense, but they seem to have softened a little bit against the run. Joe Mixon is going to be the guy that gets probably close to 100 yards, at least 1 touchdown, and probably 4 receptions.
So that's going to lead us right into my league loser this week, which is average Joe Mixon, for a lot of the reasons that you just highlighted. I get that Joe, and somebody on this panel who's a Joe hater said that this was probably going to be Joe Mixon's best season yet in his career. I got a lot of hate online for that, saying that Cincinnati was a superior offense. Joe Mixon never had it easier than he did in Cincinnati. Well, guess what? Y'all were wrong, because Joe Mixon had the perfect scenario in Houston, and he took full advantage. That comes to a screeching halt this week in your fantasy championship games. KC, that Jerome Ford run was an anomaly. Before that, KC was holding them pretty decent. I think before he broke his foot, that Chubb did have one 20-plus yard run, but that was about it. KC just lost Patrick Mahomes for the rest of the regular season. They're going to have to rely on their defense and Carson Wentz to secure that number 1 seed and the bye week going into the playoffs. So I really think that they are going to lean heavily on that defense. I think they've been able to rest a little bit because of the way the offense has been playing, the way they've been managing games. Not no more. It's time to get in playoff-ready defense mode for Kansas City. It's going to happen this week, and it's going to happen with shutting down average Joe.
All right, so my loser, I'll get right into it, is he's the biggest decoy in the NFL. DK Metcalf is living in a world that is clearly JSN's at this point. And with the Geno Smith injury, I think it only gets worse from here. A few stats just to point out how starkly bad it's been for DK Metcalf owners. He hasn't caught more than 4 balls or scored double-digit fantasy points in the last 4 weeks. Hasn't caught a touchdown since week 7. Hasn't caught more than 4 receptions. Has only caught more than 4 receptions 3 times all season. So DK Metcalf, that we're used to being have to start wide receiver, I almost think those days are over. Unless he finishes the season with a flourish with whoever, I don't even know who the Seattle Seahawks backup quarterback is. I could safely say next week you're looking at Metcalf as
Matt Hasselbeck.
Yeah, Matt. No, it's not. But it's
he
kind
almost went along with
Sam Howell, but he's
Is it
kind of
Sam
Matt.
Howell?
He's kind of like Matt Hasselbeck-esque.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just think that DK is a guy that you're looking at right now that you may want to start because his name is DK Metcalf. But based on these numbers, I mean, 4 targets, 4 targets, 4 targets, 3 targets. He's just not a huge part of this offense right now outside of getting JSN open. So
Great
we'll do
point. DK Metcalf has been super glued to my bench for the last 4 weeks or so. DK Metcalf has not been a must start for me for quite some time, and it's for that reason. I think, honestly, he's one of those players to me that you see. I think he gets a little too lost in the escapades of it all and his social media presence. I think if you worried less about looking like roided out Dennis Rodman and started playing like DK Metcalf that we saw dominate the league when he's at the top of his game, this is a JSN team right now. This is a K9 and Zach Charbonnet team right now.
Yeah.
Kenneth or DK Metcalf is an afterthought at this point in this offense. And moving forward, I know, backup quarterbacks, there's a lot of inconsistent play. A lot of times they do look for either their first read or their tight end is an escape valve. So DK might get an uptick in looks. I don't know that it's going to transition to actual points. JSN has been an absolute must-fire starter for me in this lineup for probably the better half of the last half of the season. I agree with you. I don't think DK is a must-start at all.
All right, Rocky, who's your Rocky, who's your loser?
Yeah, my league loser was a league winner for me a couple weeks ago, probably I think 3 weeks, and it's reverted, and that is the Cleveland Browns' darling Jerry Jeudy. Guy's got his first 1,000-yard season, 68 receptions, a ton of touchdowns. He's looked great, specifically the last 6 to 8 weeks. It all comes to a screeching halt, and here's why. This is his stat line across 5 games when he's played with a quarterback not named Jameis Winston.
This ought to be good.
6 receptions,
Oh, my God.
94 yards, 1 touchdown in 5 games.
It was painful.
It's painful. DTR is not the answer. I actually was a big DTR guy coming out of college. It has not translated to the pros. And he didn't do that great with Deshaun Watson either. So, unfortunately, unless DTR goes out, you have been automatically starting Jeudy and expecting to get double-digit points, and it comes to an end this week.
And here's what really stinks about that is you had to be very patient with Jerry Jeudy. I would say that by week 4 or week 5, Jerry Jeudy was probably the most often dropped top pick or highest, the most often dropped higher pick in your drafts after week 5, week 6, because it was a wait and see game with Jerry Jeudy. Jameis came along and Jerry Jeudy produced like you wanted Jerry Jeudy to do as your wide receiver 4. Even he was putting up wide receiver 3 and low end wide receiver 2 numbers. Weeks he put up wide receiver 1 numbers for sure. But again, you're right. That comes to a screeching halt now. It's over. It sucks because it's an anomaly. You had to wait. You're happy you got him. Here he is. Well, bye. He's gone again.
Well, and I can tell you, not to belabor the point, but Jerry Jeudy is, to my opinion now, when used correctly, a wide receiver 1 in this league. He has looked the part. He has shown an amazing ability. First of all, he's always been a good route runner, always been fast, and his hands have kind of come around. But what I love is that with the style of football being played in the NFL today, where you run your route and then you still have to keep running to get open, he excels at that.
Yeah.
And so if they can match him up with the right quarterback next year, I think he's another player you try to pick up for next year. Unfortunately for him, it's not going to look good the rest of this year.
All right, guys. Well, that's your playoffs winners and losers. We hope you guys gleaned some good info there. And if you haven't, please go to the page at GOM Podcast on TikTok. We'll have a bunch of clips up there for your enjoyment. Alas, let's move on to our next segment, Fantasy Primetime. All right, guys, Week 16, Fantasy Primetime. We're going to start off in the black and blue division with the Steelers at the Ravens. A lot of players in this game. We're going to highlight 2 each. We're going to lowlight 2 each. We're going to be nice and quick about it. Mark, do you want to start?
Sure.
Yeah.
Don't matter.
Yeah.
That's fine. This game for me is really tough to highlight anybody. This is going to be one of them typical AFC North low scoring, let's beat each other up for a full on hour type of games. I guess if I had to highlight two guys here, it would probably end up being. Oh, we're just doing. I thought you said two
One
each.
at a time, yeah.
Oh,
Take turns.
seems like it's gonna be long. 3 games to go through like that.
Not if we're
Well,
quick.
especially if you do an intro to each game, but go ahead.
I guess man, it's tough. If I had to highlight somebody, gun to my head, Mark Andrews probably. I think the tight ends here for the Ravens might end up doing well. Likely might be included there, but I think Mark Andrews is probably the better play. He has looked like the Mark Andrews of old and has really gained Lamar's confidence in the red zone.
All right, Rocky, what about you?
If I were to say a player that I'm focusing on, I think that George Pickens is one that I would highlight. I think he is looking to come back and prove the doubters wrong. He got hurt conveniently as he was going into the doghouse with Tomlin. But prior to that, had proven himself to be a pretty good wide receiver one. And the Baltimore Ravens have absolutely no secondary right now to speak of. So I think Pickens is a team, a guy
to
like.
your point, last time they played, he had 12 targets, 8 receptions for about 90. Mark Andrews didn't fare so well, but he has come on. Since then, he's been up and down, similar to Kelsey.
I think he was shaking off an injury still. I think that was one of his first games back.
Yeah, so, I don't love anybody in this game either, but I'm going to go with the King. King Henry is going to be a highlight for me because if I'm Baltimore, I got to look at my performance from Lamar Jackson last game and realize that's just not going to get it done. We got to lean into this guy that we gave money to and see if he could take us to the promised land. I know that Pittsburgh's front is pretty daunting, but I feel like you brought the battering ram in for a reason. So give me Derrick Henry. Legacy game, Derrick Henry. Who's your second highlight?
To Rocky's point, that secondary of Baltimore is probably their weak spot, and for that reason, I think we've seen Calvin Austin come on these last couple of weeks. Especially if Pickens isn't able to go, but even if he is, I think Calvin Austin is probably your high ceiling playmaker in this game. He seems to be the guy that they want to try to get the ball to down the field. And I think he might be able to wiggle free, especially if Pickens does play. I think Calvin Austin's more likely to wiggle free on a deep play or two and put some points on the board for you. Still a risky play. I'm not absolutely sold on him, but if I had to pick somebody, it'd probably be Calvin Austin.
I'll let you go.
Oh, you're not going? You got nobody?
Well, I would say I don't feel comfortable. I think that there's some interesting players.
Yeah.
I agree with Mark Andrews, but after that, I guess you can look at Zay, but I'm probably going the only other player I would consider starting would be Lamar.
Okay, that makes sense, right? I will throw Isaiah Likely out there. Last time they met up, they played a month ago? So 3-4 weeks ago, something like that. So he did cash in for 75 yards on 5 targets. Nothing crazy, but, if you need a guy in the flex, that time of year, injuries, bunch of stuff going on. I don't hate the Isaiah Likely start, although I wouldn't bank on it winning you your week. All right, so on to the next game. Real knock 'em out, drag 'em out AFC West matchup. Why are you laughing?
No,
we got to do low lights. Next time we come, I'm gonna have to write these details so I don't lose my place. All right, Mark, who are your lowlights?
I only need one round here. The Pittsburgh backfield, avoid them. I think if Baltimore has a strong point, it's their front four and those linebackers that can absolutely scoot. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be catching many balls out of the backfield either. Avoid the Pittsburgh backfield.
Yeah, I would. I'm going to jump on real quick because that's who I wrote down too. I don't like either of these backs, to be honest.
Yes.
I think Baltimore is going to make the Steelers beat them with Russ Wilson.
Okay, I mean, to your point, they rushed for 100 yards totally together in their first meeting. Yeah, nothing special there. I think if I had to pick out a low light, I hate to do it, but Calvin Austin is going to be my low light. Well, I think there is some upside there. Last time they played, 1 reception, -1 yard. So, they hit him on a screen. He has gotten more involved since then, but I'm just looking at the spray sheet here. The next after Pickens, the next guy with the highest targets are the 2 backs with 4 each.
Yeah.
Freiermuth got 2. I don't know how much they're going to deviate from the game script here, and I'd be a little worried if you don't get like a game-breaking play from Austin. You might be looking at a 2-pointer.
How'd the first game end up?
18-16.
Who?
Pittsburgh
won?
Yep.
Yeah. I think Pittsburgh's going to have to shake it up this time. Baltimore's going to be out for blood. And Calvin Austin's just one of those guys that's been trending up in recent weeks.
It's a high risk, high reward.
Oh,
play,
yeah.
for
And
sure.
like I said, I'm not comfortable with it at all. But I think that he potentially does have a boom ceiling.
Well, I think, if you're in a playoff matchup this week, you know your roster, you know who you're playing. If you feel like you need a home run, then maybe he's a guy you look to. If you feel like you got another guy that you could get 12 to 14 points from and win, then maybe you don't play him. That's kind of where I would go with it. All right, now on to our second game. Broncos at the Chargers. This is a big game, big implications for the playoffs. We got the Broncos, we got the Chargers, got a bunch of players. Rocky,
The Broncos and the Chargers.
who's going to be your highlight?
So I was actually looking to see if I could find the stats real quick because I want to make sure his health is in good shape. But a guy that interests me here, guy that interests me here is Lad McConkey. I feel like he has been an absolute target monster. He seems almost to kind of have taken over that Austin Eckler role where he's, at wide receiver, but getting a majority of the targets. I do like Justin. I think he's a great quarterback still. And I think that I think they're going to have to do something to try to beat the Broncos, who have an amazing defense. So that would be my highlight. I think there's a high ceiling there.
I will say the Chargers did beat the Broncos.
Yep.
October 13th, it looks like. So, talking about week 5, week 6, early in the season. I think Justin Herbert might have been banged up for that game, if I'm not mistaken. But okay. Mark, who's your highlight?
So I do like Lad McConkey. I like Lad McConkey for the reason that he hauls down the majority of his targets. But what I will tell you is that for whatever reason, they still target the absolute hell out of Quentin Johnson. And they have to. Why? Because his hands are not nearly as good as Lad McConkey. So they have to give him higher volume to bring in what they're expecting out of him. And I will say that when you are getting double-digit targets in that offense, it's a pretty good day, right?
Yeah.
Quentin Johnson is your burner. Quentin Johnson is your high pointer. Quentin Johnson is what they're going to have to look to probably try to get this offense moving, because I think Denver matches up beautifully on defense everywhere across the board with them, with the exception potentially of getting some length and height out of Quentin Johnson. I think there's going to be some desperation throws here. I think Quentin Johnson, out of everybody, probably has the highest potential for a boom game. Again, these are good games to highlight because I'm not comfortable with, so far, either one of these games predicting like a high scoring dude to come out of this to win your championship. But if I needed the Hail Mary, it's probably Quentin Johnson.
All right. I'm going to differ with you just a bit. I'm going with Cortland Sutton. The guy has just been a model of consistency since about what are we talking about? Basically, right after that Chargers game. Him and Bo Nix have gotten on the same page since the last time these teams played, where he didn't perform that well. They have really found the chemistry. He is their number one target. He's their red zone threat. He is the best player on the offense outside of Bo Nix. I think Cortland Sutton is definitely going to get red zone targets in this game. He'll get 8 to 10 targets, and I expect him to catch like 6 to 8 of them. He's just an efficient player. He's a big body. And this is a game they need to win. I mean, they need to keep their playoff hopes alive, knowing that Denver could kind of lock it up this week as far as the wild card. So I look for him to have a big game.
Yep.
Cortland Sutton.
Well, and I will say, Bo Nix, man, there's been a couple plays in each of the last games where he has done a great Josh Allen impression.
Yeah.
Strong arm, bigger quarterback who can also run. And when he does run, he's a lot to take down, and he's a pretty intuitive runner. So, I think that connection is something special.
Yeah, and just looking at his last 5 games, lowest targets were 8, 9, 10, 9, 9. He's just getting targeted crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Mark, do you have any more highlights? I mean, Rocky, you went first. Sorry. Do you have any more highlights?
I think Mark went first. But
You went first on this
I did,
one?
really?
Yeah.
No, I don't have any more highlights that I feel really
Do
comfortable
you
about.
have any?
Yeah, I'll highlight one more. Again, since this segment for me has kind of been, it's actually trending in the fact that I keep giving boomer bust guys for high ceilings. I'm going to give you another one. Marvin Mims. Marvin Mims is a guy that's been trending up the last few weeks. He's getting the targets, and even when he's not getting a lot of targets, he's getting quality targets at least. Last week, he pulled in another 4. He was targeted 4 times, pulled them all in for a measly 20 yards, but they can easily go for 4 for 110 and a tutty like they did last week too. So again, if you're up against it, you have injuries, and now you're just looking for some Hail Marys. These aren't bad guys to get into your lineup. That's a strategy that I will deploy, especially if somehow, and it had just happened this past week, man. Nightmare scenario. You have a team that's been just trouncing everybody all season long. Now all of a sudden you find yourself in the championship game with no David Montgomery, no, not that Nick Chubb was there, but you're finding yourselves with these significant injuries going into your championship game. You might not have the guys that you're comfortable getting solid points, so now you just gotta, you got to throw up that Hail Mary. Well, at least let me put some guys in that if they hit, they're going to hit big, and that's how I'm going to bring my championship home. So Marvin Mims is another guy that you could probably try to highlight like that.
I'm going to highlight one more guy. You highlighted Mims. I highlighted Sutton. You talked about him. I think Bo Nix has to be highlighted. The Chargers defense was very vaunted early in the season. They got smoked last week, and they haven't been as good. Bo Nix looks like a different quarterback than he did early in the season. Bo Nix ran for 61 rushing yards first time they played. Bo Nix is throwing the ball way better than he did early in the season. He threw 2 touchdowns on them earlier this year.
Okay,
all right.
Forget that.
So, any lowlights?
I got a low light. I'm going to highlight a player that he was talking about.
Okay.
That is just too much of a risk for me to put up in what is probably a playoff game for 90% of the leagues. And that is Quentin. I am scared to death of this guy. And the last 3 games, he's got 2 receptions, 3 receptions, 5 receptions, and he's only got 11, 12, 13 targets in 3 games. Mm-hmm. He is, you're right, a boomer bust. So there's a huge ceiling. What has saved him is that he's got 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games. But I think it's just as likely that the Broncos will hold this guy in check, and he will end up with a very mediocre stat line. And I can't afford that floor in a playoff game.
Okay. I got a low light. Do you got one?
Everybody else?
Yeah.
Everybody else? Yeah. Javonte Williams. Lock him up.
Yeah.
Stick
He
him in the
seems to be
closet.
done, man.
It doesn't look good for the kid. All right. On to the next game. Big NFC East matchup. Eagles at Commanders. Resurgent passing game in Philadelphia, apparently.
Is that what you wanted?
That what you wanted? So I'll start the festivities here with my highlight in this game. I hate to say it, but Saquon Barkley, early and often, I think they're going to just try to take the Commanders out of this game, snatch their heart from them. And
You mean like with 198 all-purpose yards and 2 tutties like they did the first time around?
something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I think Washington personally, I think this is their redemption tour. I think Saquon was relatively shut down last week in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh kind of just blueprinted how to handle him going forward.
Yeah, they don't have a TJ Watt, though.
No, but Washington's got a pretty solid defense. And you know what? I just hate Philadelphia. I
There you
really
go.
do. Like I hate
Me
them.
too. Me 3. But
Like I get why you hate them because you're a Giants fan. I hate them because like I had to grow up around them. I had to grow up around their fan base. Like
Wasn't your wife,
truly
isn't that her
hate-
team?
Yeah, that's another
Sleeping with
reason.
the enemy.
It's the in-laws and I joke about that, but I absolutely hate the Eagles. But I do think honestly, I think that Washington plays them a little bit better this time around.
so who's your highlight?
If I had to highlight somebody, anybody,
Hijack-
somebody,
hijacking my
please.
segment. Go.
Terry McLaurin is going to have a revenge game here. He had 2 targets.
100%.
2 targets in that last game.
Yeah.
If you don't think Terry McLaurin's pissed about that with, playoff seeding on the line, you're fooling yourself. Terry McLaurin is going to be a man on a mission. Jaden Daniels got some wiggle. He's going to get free. He's going to target McLaurin downfield. I think McLaurin is probably going to get double-digit looks here, and he could potentially bring down double-digit balls. I look for McLaurin to score at least 1 tutty, but I think they're really, really, really going to go McLaurin heavy in this game.
I like that excitement that I think you were kind of getting yourself hyped up there. I heard
Yeah,
it. You were like, you said double digit. catches it. You didn't even mean to say that. Just came out.
Just came out.
It was passion.
It was
All right.
organic.
Who do you got as a highlight, Rock?
I tend to agree with him on Terry Scary Terry.
Not often.
My player I want to highlight is going to be, because you took mine, Barkley. I think that's a no-brainer. I think Jaden Daniels wants to prove that the first game was more of a fluke. And where Philadelphia, he actually was 22 of 32 in his passing attempts. So he didn't have any trouble passing, finding open receivers. He had trouble because they forced him to stay in a pocket in a way that no one else up to that date had made him do. I think Jaden wants to prove that was a fluke. I think he's going to look to run a little bit quicker, be more decisive. So I think Daniels is going to have a rebound revenge game too, and I think it's going to look great.
All right, I'll throw one more in there. I'm going to highlight Brian Robinson off a lackluster performance this week. I think the juices are flowing, like you guys said, for the revenge tour here. I think if the Commanders are going to win this game, they're going to have to do it behind Brian Robinson. The Terry McLaurin stuff is great, but they need to control the clock. They need to be physical because Philly's going to come in there and try to push them around. I think Brian Robinson is their answer. So give me B-Rob. Old B-Rob.
Oh, Rob.
You got any more highlights over there, big dog?
I do. I want to look real quick.
I got stats pulled up. What do you need?
I'm curious. Well, first off, I don't know that Austin Eckler is back this week.
Austin Eckler is on IR currently.
Yes, but I think he clears either this week or next week. I'm assuming maybe it's.
I have
next
no.
week.
You're trying to knock the whole system off.
Yeah. See, I don't trust Chris Rodriguez or Jeremy McNichols enough to step into his role. He was targeted 9 times, 8 targets for 89 yards. Fantastic setup against this Philadelphia defense for a guy like that. With that being said, him not being the guy, I have noticed the propensity of them to go to Dyami Brown in a similar situation. So let me throw out another guy that if you need a Hail Mary and if you're toiling between a couple of dudes at the bottom end of your bench, Dyami Brown in that Austin Eckler around the line of scrimmage, quick guy to beat the quick linebackers type of role. He could be your guy this week. They're going to need somebody to pick up Austin Eckler's production. I don't think anybody else in that backfield has Austin Eckler's skill set, and I don't know that any of the other receivers outside of Terry McLaurin have that skill set either. So I think it would have to be Dyami Brown.
Dyami Brown last 2 weeks, 9 targets, 7 receptions. So not bad. Not a bad little something to toss into the ring there. All right, I'm going to move on to my low light. And, man, he killed me not starting him this week, but I'm not buying it. I am not buying the hype on Devonta Smith. 11 targets this game. I feel like Philly really made it a point to get the passing game going. I don't think that continues. I think their identity is ground game, Saquon Barkley. I expect Devonta Smith to go back to sub 6 targets a game. And if they're going to toss the ball around, they still have to get the ball out. Old crybaby A.J. Brown. And I don't expect 11 targets going Devonta Smith's way again.
Yeah, I agree. 2025, you know what I'm most looking forward to in 2025 coming up here right around the new year is watching Philly ultimately get ousted from the playoffs with these crybaby divas that they have surrounded their star running back with.
Very nice. Do you have a low light?
The rest. The game.
The rest. Do you
the
have a
two
low light
cities.
you wanna point
I
out?
can't stand D.C. or Philadelphia.
So again,
I wish the Smithsonian was in Virginia.
I'm taking this from a standpoint of you're in the playoffs and you just can't afford a player to bomb. And so my low light is Jalen Hurts. First game they played, he was 18 for 28, 220 yards, 0 touchdowns. And on the ground, only 39 yards. He did score there. He did score there. But he underperformed.
Yeah.
If you're putting him as a quarterback, and I have him on several of my teams, unfortunately, and I'm expecting the guy to get 25 to 30 or more points.
Yeah.
And this is a game where it scares me, and again, I think that the Commanders are going to try to control the clock.
And it's worth noting, I mean, those totals you gave, not great. They did put up 26 points, so it wasn't like the Eagles scored 16 or 17 points and he put up these numbers.
Yeah.
So, I can see that happening again.
Yeah. Anyway, so that would just be a player that if you got if you got another, and I'll be honest, this past week I needed to make the playoffs, had to outscore you, and so I took a risk on Aaron Rodgers compared to Jalen because I thought Rodgers had a higher ceiling. Thank God it paid off.
He went off.
Yeah, 35 compared to 30.
If only I would have started Goff on my bench. 56 burger.
Yeah, he looked good. Looked good, man.
That sucks. All right. Anyway, that is fantasy prime time. We're gonna move right along into our Get Bold section. That's how you get bold. All right, Get Bold.
Get bold.
Get bold. Last week, we got bold. Rocky got bold. Rocky's bold statement came true. Clairvoyant. Jameis Winston,
I
I
predict
believe.
5 catches for 62 yards.
No,
I nailed it.
Yeah, historically, his get bolds have been pretty pedestrian.
They're not super bold.
No,
but
they've
Jameis
been
Winston
bold.
was
You
good.
guys have been jealous because I'm hitting Jameis Winston. I called
I
him
hit
to
the
have.
last 2 weeks before that.
Called him to have.
See, I was just giving you your flowers. Let me do it. Right?
Go ahead.
Jameis Winston.
I feel like he was not.
He was not. No, because that's him.
He's a bastard.
Jameis Winston, I think Rocky called him under 200 yards, 2 picks, and possibly get him pulled for DTR. Lo and behold,
All 3 of the above,
damn near
right?
happened. I think you went 3 for 3, or did he throw 1 pick?
He threw 3 picks.
Oh, there you go. So you
3
were off.
picks. Yeah, he threw 3 picks. No touchdowns. It got pulled.
Oh, I know whatever.
Yeah.
What was your bold pick? I clipped all the bold picks. Do you remember yours?
Yeah.
Oh, Calvin
Ridley gonna catch us.
You weren't far off. 3 catches for Calvin Ridley. Not what you wanted.
For 45 yards. That ain't winning you nothing.
So if you listen to Mark, you
you
were happy.
sat somebody
Yeah.
that you
I don't
should
remember
have.
my bold pick. Do you remember?
Maybe we should write this down.
Yeah, probably should write it down. I wish there was other people on the show.
His bowl was funny, man. He like nailed everything.
Yeah,
no,
the bold,
yeah.
that was good.
Listen,
All
I
right,
know
so
my Browns. I know what's.
Yeah, he
I
knows
know
the
my
Browns.
Browns. Unfortunately,
I think my get bold was the Ravens.
Can we clip that?
It was the Ravens.
You know what?
it was the Ravens.
Yeah. So I hit 1 of 3. Whatever. All right. So here we go. Get bold. We're gonna make a bold statement about your fantasy player this week. Usually we start with you. I'm gonna start with you this week. Who you got?
All right. Yeah, I've got one, and this may be honestly a guy that you can actually still pick up on waivers because a lot of teams cut him when he got injured, and that is Josh Downs. Josh Downs, I think down the stretch is going to do really well. So if you got 1 or 2 more games in your playoffs, here's who they're playing the next 2 games: Tennessee Titans, New York Giants.
Yeah,
Pick
I
him
mean,
up in the
cakewalk.
in the 7 games that he's been healthy. Fully healthy, 63 targets, 46 receptions, more than 7 receptions a game with 9 targets and 4 touchdowns.
Sounds like you got the syndrome.
Go ahead. Syndrome.
Saying.
Well, yeah. What?
The Josh Downs
All right.
syndrome.
Yeah. Go ahead. Now go.
Yeah.
You go.
Wow.
So my get bold.
I thought he was gonna parlay that. Right?
My get bold is I don't know if this seems as obvious to anybody else as it does to me, but if you're in the championship game and you got James Conner, tip of the cap to you, sir or madam, because guess what? You again just won. Because James Conner is about to go absolutely nuclear on this Carolina defense. I'm looking at James Conner to put up over 200 all-purpose yards, and he's going to score twice in this game. James Conner is going for over 30 burger. He might put up close to 40 on this Carolina defense with a guy like Rico Dowdle that just ran rump shot on that Carolina team.
That's a word.
So
I feel like you're stealing my thunder here, but I respect it.
look for stealing your thunder, dude. I texted that.
No, not my guy.
Oh,
Why don't you just let?
oh,
let
you're
the show
gonna
play out?
use rump shot.
Why don't you just let the show play out, right?
Okay.
All right. I actually like that. I mean, he went nuclear this week.
You
So
gonna do it again?
back-to-back nukes. That is bold.
Hiroshima. This guy.
All right, so mine is probably super obvious, but I'm doubling down. Jahmyr Gibbs, Montgomery out of the picture. Lions coming off a loss. They're going to play the crappy Bears. Yeah, I don't see how he doesn't go nuts. I have him. This is why I say you kind of pooped on me. I had him at 175 all-purpose and 2 touchdowns. I think he gets think the 2 touchdowns are like a formality here.
Yeah,
honestly.
mine's a little bolder than yours.
It is a little bolder, but mine will probably hit.
No, mine's actually accurate.
175. He went for over 100 last time they played
Okay.
on the ground. I think he'll do that again.
If you look in the get
pass
under my
game.
skin, I've already cashed out.
I'm not trying to get into your. What's wrong?
I've
with
already
you?
cashed out.
Well, there goes my
They're
clip, right?
unbearable to watch.
God, you're dumb, huh?
You ain't clipping
So
the whole
Jahmyr
thing.
Gibbs, yeah, I clipped all 3 of them last week.
All you have to do is just clip the front part of that.
Jahmyr Gibbs, 175 all-purpose yards, 2 touchdowns. Lock it in.
Yeah. You guys, he jumped ahead and didn't let me actually put stats to Josh
Yeah, there
Downs.
you go. Well, he's
So,
doing that all episode.
I'm going to say
We're gonna fuck him up. Damn, I gotta take that out.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't the one who broke the code.
I'm going to say Josh Downs has 10 targets, 7 receptions, 90 yards, and at least 1 touchdown. He's gonna get double-digit points here.
All right, I like it. All right, guys, that's the show. If you like the show, go to the page on TikTok at GNWN Podcast. Like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell here on YouTube. Make sure you get those alerts. All right, and check in with us every Sunday before kickoff. We're going live, helping you with your lineups and all things considered in fantasy. We hope to see you there. We love you. Peace.